Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webcast on the service desk. I'm Henrik Zangenberg, and the CEO here at Zangenberg Analytics.
And I'm Dan Larsen, associate partner, same place.
Same place. Let's get started with this, and just a little bit about. As you probably know, we are very ambitious people here at Zangenberg, so we have a very ambitious agenda, and I think it might be the case that we don't get to the end of it. Yeah, which means that if we don't get to the end of the agenda, you're always welcome to call us or write us for a follow-up meeting, and we'll be happy to take this through areas that we perhaps didn't touch upon in the right level of detail. So we're starting out with looking a little bit on the market for outsourced service desk services, what that looks like, and then we move into the scope of the service desk. So what is it really that the service desk do? What's the process scope of the service desk right now? And then we go to one of the areas that obviously interests us a lot, being a benchmarker. We look at how you size up the task. I mean, how do you actually analyze what's going on in the service desk? And we'll give you some examples on analysis that we've been part of that shows different areas of potential intervention and further initiatives. Then we'll go and look at the cost drivers. So what is it really that drives the cost when you are outsourcing the service desk? But these are, of course, also areas that will drive the cost for an insourced service desk. But there are obviously some drivers that are unique to the outsourced setup. We'll get to that, and then we'll, as far as we can, we have time for it. We will look at the opportunities. What can you actually do if you're a large client or if you're a small to mid-sized client? Okay. So what happens in the market? Well, I don't know if you want to take this rather messy slide.
Well, maybe I won't touch upon every point, but as we just talked about, automation is a key focus area, and has been for the mature service desk organizations, and all the vendors are investing heavily in this password resets and virtual agents, language detection, etc. All to become even more efficient and to serve to raise the ratings of each service desk, but also to become even more efficient per ticket. And also the process maturity. How do you become even better, and how do you keep growing in maturity as an organization? Especially the knowledge management area is an area that has a lot of focus, and an area that a lot of people can learn from. There's some good tools and some nice processes that you can learn from and become even better. And that goes for even the smaller service desk, but of course also for the very large service desk. That finding your level of knowledge management will enhance first call resolutions especially, but also the happiness of your clients or customers. And then of course there's a lot of data being put into this, and measuring and KPIs and SLAs and XLAs. You keep measuring to try to improve and find areas where you could become better by tuning the tools, or by educating your staff. I think we have a large of
exactly.
So this is about using tools to become better at various areas, and here it's automation, analytics, virtual agents, and smart assist. And there's some nice KPIs for using each of those. yeah, so automation could be standard service request automations, password resets, of course, a process recorder. Around the analytics, I just touched upon it, but it's again analyzing, categorizing, and actually using that analysis to become better at serving your customers. That's a lot of analytics, not just categorizing it. You need to use the data afterwards and have a look at what could be done better. And not least predictive maintenance, large area where a lot of things are happening with tools, surveying or monitoring your devices, or categorizing tickets that you might see an issue starting to arise within the organization. If you've had 3 or 10 or something of a new issue and you can see that growing, then it might be helpful to go and repair it before everyone calls the service desk.
I think it's important to say that the experience that many clients have with those kind of predictive tools and also monitoring the user experience and trying to, basically that has to do with finding the issues before you get a lot of calls to the service desk. So basically preemptive, find and solve problems before it explodes in incidents. So it's about making the incidents not happen, really. And the experience with those kind of tools are somewhat mixed. As I said before, the investment in building these setups can be quite substantial, and in some cases the problem lies in actually converting identified problems into solutions, because then you need people, then you need someone to actually take action. And in some organizations, they found that the number of signals they get, the number of potential problems, does not. I mean, they do not have the resources that actually allows them to handle them all properly. And the prioritization itself is an issue. So this is an area that we expect to see a lot more of, but it's also a rather immature area. Also, if you read Gartner on this, they say basically the same, that this user experience over examination and those kind of tools, it's still quite immature, and the best practices for actually implementing this and making it work are quite scarce. So yeah.
And it's not just solved by investing in a tool. You need to invest in the organization and invest in time to first do the proactive analytics, and then put in some setup so you actually start doing something about it instead of just measuring, then doing the predictive maintenance.
Yeah. So these tools. So that's basically the last sentence here under analytics, is something that you should look into, but don't expect that to give you a lot of result on the short term, while automation of standard services and request automation, those are the areas where we've seen a lot of result in client organization. And also, of course, the virtual agent, I mean, self-service bots or other kind of self-service solutions is also a way of moving the task to the user themselves, and that has a big success in many organizations, actually shifting all the way left, as we say. Yeah. Okay. So, what do you measure? Well, there's a lot of things you can measure. And I think, do we have the next one? No, that's not here. So we have it a little later. We have a more comprehensive list of things that you can measure. As Dan said, you can measure the device performance. So what does it look like on the PCs? What does it look like in the data center? Does that give you any insights into problems that, as we talked about before, more predictive or preemptive ways of doing of working with this? But otherwise, that it's application performance is pretty much the same. Service performance. So how do you, as a service desk, how do you perform?
First call resolution primarily.
Yeah. And what's the, you can also measure on the user productivity and the user satisfaction. Either actually measure it on the productivity if you have any objective productivity measures, or by surveying, as you would usually do with user satisfaction. Yeah. And obviously the box that we call digitization is more about self-service and how far are you on your travel to actually offer digitization options, I mean self-service options and the similar to your users.
And for people like us, this is a great area because it's an area full of data and with where you keep producing data that you can actually measure on and use as KPIs to control the path. But again, you want to use that with everything with all data. You want to use it in the best way possible and not just set up KPIs that you don't have the mandate to implement anything on. So these are ways to measure, but of course you need the full setup to get the benefit of it.
So if we look at what the world leading service providers on Servicedesk, what they're doing, they're obviously doing all of this. They're measuring on all of these areas. They're working on the stuff we talked about before. They automate to the highest degree possible. They use virtual agents wherever possible. They provide agent assistance tools. I mean, so that is, they give the agents in the call centers the best possible tools to actually service the clients, and they work with substantial analytical departments that constantly perform analytics on what is going on the individual client. And remember, in these cases, they often have clients with 50,000 or 100,000 users. So there's often substantial room for, I mean, even the incidents that you come around more seldom, they actually see them quite often because of the sheer volume of what they're working with. So looking to those, especially some of the Indian players, you find what we see as the highest level of automation and the highest level of digitization and the most in-depth analytics and the widest set of KPIs. You should use that to be inspired, but don't think that you can emulate it because these are companies that service huge user bases. And therefore the business case of, for example, looking at automation options will not be the same as it will be for you. Also, what we see is, of course, that more and more of this is being built into the standard system. So the ITSM platforms, they don't look the same today as they did just 5 years ago. So you get a lot of the tooling, some of the tooling for this, you get in the platform. And I think going back to Peter's question here at the beginning, you should keep an open eye on what your ITSM platform offers in the latest version in terms of these workflow automation tools, user evaluation tools and whatnot, in order to find out what are the tools that you have right now that would be the best fit for your problems. But this is Gartner, just their magic quadrant for ITSM platforms. And it basically shows, and I think that's no surprise that we have in this area a clear market leader, and and 3 others in the leaders quadrant. But there is one clear market leader here, and it's also that product is also the product we see with most of our Danish clients, our Nordic clients. So yeah, no surprise there, I guess. Yeah. Obviously, when we look at what the service management platform can do, they focus on providing more data and supporting the incident management process to automate more and lower resolution time. That is really their main focus. And they do that by providing different kind of tooling. What we call IT support enablement, which is basically what we look at the first square to the left. Manage the life cycle, integrated knowledge base, and we'll get back to that because knowledge management and the use of the knowledge base is what we believe is where a lot of our clients are right now. They're looking into actually utilizing those kind of tools and also organizing around knowledge management a lot more than they have used to do, because there is a lot of value to that. We'll get back to it. It's about having the recommendations that's in the system, the actionable recommendations to different kind of problems. The platform support different kinds of automation, like workflows and RPA-like functionality. Yeah, I guess that is. I think that's the multi-channel engagement, the ability to support users through different kind of channels, portals, over the phone, live chat, mobile apps, those kind of things is obviously also on the move.
And the key capabilities.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think we've been here a little, but let's do it again, and let's talk a little more about the different areas and what you can do and how much it requires of data and technology. So the automation and resolution of simple service requests, like the password reset or user administration, simple user administration tasks, that's actually something that doesn't require a lot. That's actually quite easy.
Yeah, the first step in your automation process. Yeah.
If you haven't done that, if you haven't identified the high hitters in terms of automation candidates, this is definitely where you should be looking. Yeah, the next one. I don't know if you want to take that.
Sure. So the end user knowledge for self-resolution, the shift left thought, where you assist your users in defining the problems and finding information easily by either virtual agents or a knowledge base that's open for your service desk users. And of course that comes down to how do you convey that information? Is it useful? Does the user know that they can actually do it themselves? How easy does that this kind of solution come to their mind instead of just calling the service desk?
There's a lot of culture here, because in some organizations, people actually prefer to service themselves. I mean, they go into the intranet or whatever, ask the question there, how do I reset my password, find the solution and do it. In some organizations and a vast majority of the users would actually prefer that rather than have to call a service desk. In other organizations, they completely rely on the service desk, and they don't want to actually search for the solution to the problems themselves. They might even be in a situation where that's impractical or impossible. For example, people working in a hospital, in a clinical situation, they need a fast solution to their problem, and they don't really have time or the skills to find a problem and solve the problem. They need another kind of solution to the problem. So you have to take into account what is the culture and what is the practicality of self-service and self-resolution.
But a story we often hear around self-service is that initially there's some skepticism around how from the users about this self-service, but generally we experience more user satisfaction coming from self-service resolutions, which is counterintuitive when you ask people from the onset that they would rather just keep calling the usual number. But then they figure out that actually it's much quicker just doing it from wherever they are and not waiting in line, and perhaps also just solving the problem themselves gives them some kind of satisfaction.
Yeah. So moving in that direction in some cases is actually just slamming in the open door. In other cases, you actually need to work with that culture in order to make people realize that it's actually a better solution to themselves as well. So don't underestimate that as part of the success here. Also, of course, if you're moving in that direction, you need to have self-resolution options for all the most common problems. It doesn't work if people find that every time they go to the self-resolution system or portal, they don't find a resolution to their problem. I mean, so there's also a kind of a critical mass issue here in terms of making sure that you can service a certain percentage of the issues that users usually find themselves in. Yep. Improving the resolution time and the routing. This has to do with the internal organization of the service desk and the rules you apply to, and I'll just move ourselves here, to the rules you apply to first determine when is it first and second line, when do you hand over, when do you dispatch, and so on. But also and assisting the service desk team in making those decisions fast. And the tools do have a lot of options in making that possible for you to code into the screens that the service desk agents are looking at to give them those kind of routing advices.
Yeah, and in the bottom here, the highest degree of automation is the target self-healing and device integration. Here, that's the tools to monitor end user devices, especially, and that's boot times and how much or how fast is each application answering each user. So this is a lot of monitoring technology, but in that you use that monitoring to identify these errors and move towards predictive maintenance, because when you have all that data to combined in an overview, you start moving faster.
And as we said before, don't expect to get big return on investment in the short term on these kind of initiatives. They will take time. They do require critical mass. So don't go there if you have 1 or 2 or 300 users that you support. Then it probably won't be worth the effort. This is for larger organizations or organizations outsourcing this to a service desk that has a service desk provider that has a fixed setup to do this.
Yeah, and you in that regard you can use it as a expectation of your service provider, that if you're outsourcing this, then this could be a list of measuring how mature are they in the automation area, and you could expect them to provide you with the full list here if it's a large and very mature organization.
But of course, if you're going for target self-healing, device integration, and those kind of things, if you're a smaller client, you should then you need to abide to the standard setup of that vendor, which basically means you should probably expect that your entire device setup should be standardized in order to adhere to the standards of that service provider. So using your own home tailored setup and asking a service provider to do this, that will be even more expensive than if you did it yourself. So yeah.
And possibly if you didn't do it at all, just resolve it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. When we look at this, I mean the number of, or the share of automated tickets, this is what we call tier 0 here, has significantly increased over time. This is 4 peers that we've selected from our database, and it just shows you that targeting a 45% share of tickets to be automated is not unrealistic. So basically, it is a substantial part of the tickets that could be automated in most cases. And we'll show you some more examples in a short while. Okay, so that was the helicopter view of the market. It's about automation, you know that. It's about knowledge management. It's about, if you're very advanced, it's about predictive maintenance. And it's about basically automating and making things disappear. And the things that you can't make disappear is about solving them as efficient as possible. Okay, so let's go into the process scope of this. So this is really just, this is ITIL, and this is a big chunk of the main ITIL processes, and we've just yellowed out the parts that are relevant when you look at the operational part of the service desk. So obviously there's a service strategy, a service design, and service transition with the service desk, as you have with all other IT operational processes. But really what we believe is interesting here, and where you spend all your FTEs is down on the service operation. It's event management and incident management. It's typically access management that you have in the service desk, and then it's line 1 support, which is also really about requests. So we'll get to it, of course, in more depth, but those are the operational processes. Those processes you probably have in place. You do that every day. If you have a help desk, this is what happens. Now the question is really, how much do you work on the continual improvement of those processes? This is just, basic ITIL thinking, is that you have a process and then you continually improve the process. But with the service desk, this is even more important than with a lot of the other processes we have in our IT department, because this is an area where the continual improvement can give you so much more efficiency, as we demonstrated before. I mean, if you didn't automate, you have a 40% savings waiting for you here in the continual improvement of the service desk, right? So So basically what we're saying is, this is an area that if you didn't do anything about automation over the last 3 to 4 years, you're probably, there are big savings waiting for you.
And in another perspective, as the IT landscape and your user base keeps evolving, you need to keep improving your services to keep up with just the level of user satisfaction that you have today, because new issues will appear, new incidents will become more frequent, and that just the knowledge management part of that is just keeping track of that and learning that this is the new resolution to this new incident, and how do we keep on being ahead of the curve in that regard. If you don't strive to improve, then you will experience weaker user satisfaction over time.
And with continual improvement, it's like, because I've just had an epiphany at home, and that is talking about painting the kitchen doesn't really get the kitchen painted. Now, if you want to have the kitchen painted, you have two options. Either you set aside time to do it, or you spend money to get someone else to do it, right? So, and it's the same with continual improvement.
Very wise.
Yeah, those are wise words to live by. But it's the same with continual improvement. It doesn't really matter that you decide that you want to do it, and that there's a management decision that we need to do continual improvement. You actually have to put resources into it. It's a big surprise to many organizations that it doesn't really happen by itself. Continual improvement should be something we all did. You know, when we get up in the morning, and we should continually improve stuff, but we don't. And organizations don't tend to continually improve themselves unless. This is great insights.
Yeah, and you're ready to share this already.
Yeah. We give it away for free, this insight. No, so it means that continual improvement requires investment. It requires people, roles, FTE assignments. It requires processes that actually run like the operational processes. And this is basically where we see most of our clients failing, is that they spend a lot of time down in the operational box because they have to in order to survive every day, but they spend too little resources on the continual improvement, which is where you should spend some time. And I mean, this is about, as we say here, service assessment and analysis. Who's actually assessing and performing analysis of your services? Who's looking into the ITSM tickets and performing analysis? And I'll share an insight as well, another one.
Wow.
And that is when we go to clients and do benchmarking, it seems like it's, if not the first time, that it's a rare occasion where someone actually assesses and perform in-depth analysis of the service tickets, because no one has the time to do it, because no time was assigned to actually do that.
And that's a pity when you have, from our perspective, when you have a lot of data and don't use that value that the data actually has, because there are some low-hanging fruits just by analyzing just on the overall picture of those. You can get a good overview of what could be done in a few hours.
And in the next segment, we'll take you through a few ways to analyze those data, because it doesn't need to be a very big project. I mean, but someone needs to be assigned to do the job, to do the analysis, to do some reporting, to do some measurements here, ongoing measurements, and also to propose the projects that would move you to the next step. Those kind of initiatives we talked about before, automation initiatives, knowledge management initiatives, and so on. Service assessment and analysis, that's basically looking into the ITSM records and looking into the efficiency of the service agents, looking into what kind of what's the automation potential and so on. That's one thing where you need to assign people to do that. The other thing is knowledge management. Like with the service assessment, many organizations has the idea that service agent out of their own free will should be able to make some good knowledge management articles as they go along and put them into the big knowledge base, and then it would be available to everybody else. And we see this basically moving in two directions. One is they don't, so there's not really anything in there of any value, or a lot of them do, but the knowledge base becomes, but there's no one doing the housekeeping of the knowledge base. So you will find good advice on how to solve a problem 2 years ago, because no one really took that advice out of the knowledge base and replaced it with the updated advice on how to solve that particular problem. So knowledge management is a pretty comprehensive area that also requires people. It requires roles and processes, but if you have the volume, there's a very good return on investment on those kind of setups. So yeah, this slide is to say, yes, keep focusing on what goes on in the service operation, but make sure that you have your continual improvement set up in place, because otherwise you won't really move your organization. You will just keep on working in the old way in your service operation processes. Okay, so if you now buy this from someone outside, from a service provider, there's different bundling offerings, options. I don't know if you want to take it through.
And I think a key message here is every time we talk about something, you have to measure it up against how big is your user base, because some of these things make sense if your users or if you're enough users, and some of them don't because you're not. Somewhat the same here when you talk about bundling of the various items in the stack here. If you look at outsourcing your service desk and just your service desk as a remote service desk, that just you get a lot of these things as we talked about just before. But what we're going to talk about now is how you can expand that sourcing idea, and where would that leverage synergies. But also, it would exclude some service desk providers, as they don't want to do that part of the service scope, or they're not capable of that. So in this is a weighing up of the two sides. Of you can get some synergies by expanding it, but you will also have less competition. But also your scope of vendors will be more mature organization as soon as you start expanding the stack here, as if you go a slide ahead.
Yeah, and also of course the login increases.
Yeah, of course. Let's say another side of that coin. So if you could expand from the just remote services, you could also outsource your on-site support. It makes a lot of sense to include the on-site support in your service desk, as it's the somewhat same issues, just going to different resolution personnel, where some of the issues called into the service desk needs on-site support. From there, the synergies are obvious. But then again, that requires local presence. You can't have a call center somewhere in Europe or India doing your on-site support, of course, if you're in Europe, that is. But there is some large synergies between these two yellow boxes.
Yeah, and we see some of the Indian players. They do play in both. They then just enter subcontractor agreements with companies in local countries.
But then you have to assess how big is the synergy exactly on the offered service. Device management, where you have the EMM view of this. this also goes for your phones and your iPads and whatnot. But there are some of course some more synergies by expanding the on-site support to also include device management. Yeah, again, that's the same story, but again, it makes sense for some and for some it doesn't. And then the full bundling will also have a CRM part and
service
some
integration and management.
Yeah, as a sender, and then you know where to call every time you have a problem. There will be this vendor where you also source your hardware from, not just the maintenance. So here you have like a full responsibility at one vendor, which gives them a lot of synergies because they know exactly what hardware you have, and they have a lot of experience perhaps from another customer, leveraging more synergies.
Yes. Okay, so let's take a dive into the knowledge management part of the setup, because that's an area where, I mean, together with automation, this is an area where we see a lot of movement, and where we see a lot of our clients actually working more and more diligent and in making these processes work. And just, yeah, this is a nice slide because it's so simple, but it basically saves. Okay, so what is the definition and the purpose? Knowledge management or knowledge center services is a set of workflow practices to create, improve, and maintain systematic documentation. So this is about having a knowledge base, basically a big base of articles that helps you solve specific problems. You can use it in the service desk, so the service desk agents use the articles to help service the users, or you can even expose them to the users for self-service purposes. And in those cases, you probably need to reformat some of the content, because you would have used specific language for the service agents, whereas you would need something a little more popular in getting it to the end users.
And it's not just a question about the size of your documentation list. It's just as much how the usability of each of those documents. How easy are they to find? How well are they categorized and searchable? But also how easy are they to understand? Especially if you start using them for not just your service desk resources, but also for your end users. And that's and also in that regard, you need to keep the focus on how much time do we need to put into this practice, because there's a sense of minimum viable product that needs to be a part of this. This is not a big library that should be just as easy on the eye as every other article you can find. This is just should give you the exact information you need and nothing more than that, because you can spend a lot of time doing or evolving this documentation database, but a lot of that time won't be worthwhile if it's not read, and you could do it with less words or just less figures and illustrations. But the whole idea is of course that when you have a good database of documentation, your service desk can easily find other experiences of the same incidents and the same problems, and that will reduce the dependency on key personnel. So you don't have specialists that if they are not available, then you can't answer the problem. Then you have your knowledge database where you can look up the resolution to each problem. And it's an evolving thing. You start out from small, and then you add things, and as new incidents occur, then they'll be added at one point, not the first time you see it, but after a couple of times when you realize that this is something that will keep occurring. So we need every agent in our service desk to be able to do this exact and the most efficient resolution to each of the problems.
So what do you get out of it? Well, reduced resolution time, reduced dependency on key personnel. You also get a faster learning curve for new service agents, which is in many organizations with a certain personnel turnover in the service desk. That's actually also an important benefit. And then you basically enable agents to resolve more complex issues than they would otherwise be able to do, because they have the access to the knowledge on how to do it.
Yeah, when you keep the information for your service desk agents, then the first call resolution will increase dramatically. And if you start giving it to some of the knowledge database to your users, of course that will be more of a shift left thought. So
the nice figure in the second column is what we call the solve and evolve loop, which basically says, okay, you have to capture, structure, reuse, and improve your content. That is something that needs to go on some kind of a process. There needs to be processes to do that. And then there's the evolve loop. You need to have people that actually look at the content health in order to find where you need to improve. You need to have some process integration to make sure that this works together with the other operational processes. And you have to set up some KPIs in order to measure that you are moving in the right direction. And the big global service providers in this area, they have a lot of measurements and KPIs, like contribution percentage. I mean, how much does each service agent contribute to the content base? There's also how much is each article being used and read, and there's also the perceived value of the articles by the agents and so on. So there's a lot of measurements that you can set up. In the lower right corner, we have some of the benefits that we've actually seen out there. So first of all, we talked about this increase in proficiency for new support team members. You can rapidly get people operational. So this 70% faster time to proficiency is quite significant.
And an interesting number is the next one, the improvement in employee retention. This is somewhat a proxy of how much the service desk agents enjoy their role or doing what they do. And when we see an increase in the employee retention, it means that it's a better working environment coming from this knowledge management system.
We have a few slides here. I'll just leave them to you for your own reading afterwards, which is basically so what does an implementation plan for this looks like, and the governance around it. If you're a big organization, not only do you need processes and resource allocation, you actually need some kind of governance around this as well. And this one dives into the different roles that you would have. You need to have a knowledge management knowledge. You need to have a knowledge manager. You need to have some domain experts, and you will have quality auditors, analysts, and so on. So there are different kind of roles here that you should consider. Obviously, this is the setup for a big knowledge management organization. You will have to find the scaled down version that fits your need. And these are some of these are examples of some of the metrics I mentioned before. Contribution index, link accuracy, time to publish, and so on. Again, use this as an inspiration in designing your own setup. If you have 5,000 users or 2,000 users, you might not want to do this in the full, you definitely should not do this in the full scale way, but you need to consider how to actually approach knowledge management. Okay, those were the words on knowledge management. Let's look then into how you can become a little more wiser on your service desk by analyzing your service desk tickets. And this is what we do when we perform benchmarking of service desks, which is part of what we do in our benchmarking business, is of course that we also look at the specific tasks in the and the specific tickets in the ticket database. I don't know if we want to go down to this one. Should we?
Well, there's a range of activities that we would expect to be part of the service scope when we look at a service desk provider, and if they are or if they are not, that will affect what the price should be at least. So these are things we would go in and measure how much of this service scope is actually being done, and from there we would have an idea of what would the market charge you if you wanted a service like that.
Yeah, the graph here basically shows the things that would add to the price, whether you do or do not perform any of these activities. And we'll get back to that in a short while, because we'll look at the price drivers later on. But obviously, whether you do availability management or not, or capacity management or not, as part of your service desk operation, that will have an impact on the price. Okay, but let's dive into some real life examples here. This is a client that have a volume of roughly 10,000 registered tickets over a 10-month period. And we notice a few things here is that there's an average around
9,000.
Yeah. So it's not, sorry, it's not, it's a roughly an average of 10,000, 9,645 tickets per month, with some variance from month to month. Not a big one, but there's a variance from this 7,800 in July, summer holiday, to 12,278 in September. And if you exclude the summer holiday, the variance is between low 9,000 to 12,000. So on the high level data, what we would be looking at is, first of all, is this a high or low number?
Yeah, and that we would ask, well, how many FTEs are you supporting in your service desk? Because that ratio will tell us something about how many issues do you actually experience compared to others. So, and as we've marked here in the gray box, a normal ticket load would be between half and one ticket per FTE per month. That's what we normally see, and that can be good explanations why it's not like that. If you have just implemented a whole new system portfolio or whatever, a migration has just taken place and things like that. But we would go in and look at the explanations of why the ticket to FTE ratio was off compared to normal. That would be a starting point.
That's a starting point. Okay. Next point is, now we need to analyze the tickets. And there's basically two ways you can go. If you have good data, that is, everybody actually put in categories and subcategories on the tickets when they created the ticket. You have a good taxonomy for your tickets that allows you to perform the analysis. Then you're good to go. But in most cases, we find that organizations have a very poor discipline in categorizing the tickets as they are created. Mm-hmm. So what you really have to do is to look at the text in the tickets. To do that, we created a machine learning algorithm using Google's BERT. You can, if you ask us to help you, we can utilize that. But it's basically a matter of using machine learning to categorize your tickets in categories that make sense for the analysis. And we'll show you in a short while what that is. This is just to say, using machine learning to for these kind of analysis is actually a good choice. So we get quite a high accuracy when we compare when we learn. We produced a learning set from three different clients, and we actually tested them across each other and found that the accuracy was in the 90s for all of them. So which is more than enough to say, okay, so this algorithm would actually allow you to understand what the individual ticket is about. And once you have done that, you can start out by, these are the categories, and we'll spend a short time on those. But once you have done that, then you can actually you can actually start looking at what kind of issues do we actually handle in the help desk, in the service desk. And these are the kind of issues that we are handling in the service desk, right?
Yeah, this is one way of categorizing all these tickets, and here it's 11 categories. Of course, some of them are more applicable to you than others. So this is somewhat a standard categorization, we'd say.
Yeah, and basically what you have here is also a taxonomy you could use for categorizing your tickets if you actually forced your service agents to say, what is this about? Mm-hmm. Well, this is about user administration, password reset. Then you would know. But in most cases, you don't have that. But probably it does say something in the text today that said reset the password or password reset or whatever. And the machine learning algorithm we just talked about will basically identify that as that specific sub item here. Now, the reason why this is interesting is, of course, because in these boxes, you have different things you could do in order to optimize your service desk. So, business systems, problems that users experience with a business system, those are issues that are often unique to you as a company. And in order for the service desk to provide good advice, you need to have a knowledge base with the most commonly known problems with the business systems, right? So solving issues within that box is typically about better knowledge management, but obviously it's also about about finding issues that everybody is experiencing and then fix that problem in the business system. So if you have 100 people every month reporting an error on a specific screen on a specific business system, and you have a well-known workaround in your knowledge base, well, the real solution to that problem would, of course, be to solve the problem in the business system. And that feedback loop needs to take place. And if you do an analysis of all your tickets and you find out that you have a specific problem occurring a lot of times within a specific business system, that is a finding you can use proactively to go out and fix that problem.
And in an outsourcing perspective, this category would be one of the least obvious to outsource, as all these categories would require some sort of business awareness or understanding of the client's applications. The closer to your users the service desk is, the easier they will understand this and help resolve those. So if you're looking at outsourcing your service desk, it's a good idea to understand how standardized is our business application portfolio. What kind of incidents do we experience here? Would we be the one resolving it if we outsource this to for example, Indian service desk?
So where business systems incidents issues to the service desk are often quite unique to the client, often can be complicated and domain specific. The next one, the user administration, is pretty straightforward. This is an area you should automate to the highest degree possible. You should shift left it, meaning that you should allow for user self-service to the highest degree possible. This is the area where you will find in many organizations the largest potential really for saving money in your service desk. Yeah. Then there's the workplace hardware, the configuration. This is where integrating your client hardware to your service desk system, so the service desk agent can actually see the health or sickness of the client's hardware as they call in, is a significant an area for significant time savings, but as we talked about earlier, also an area that often requires quite substantial investments. End user software. So if you have a lot of calls to your service desk on end user software like Microsoft Office or Adobe or Teams or whatever, you might want to be looking at either education, solving this entirely outside of the service desk, but educating your users. You might want to give them access to online education, self-service options in this area. This is an area that really is also a huge potential if it is a substantial volume of what you get.
And also knowledge management wise, this could be an easy area to have some easy documentation for your service desk agents.
Yeah, exactly. Network, this is an area obviously where knowing the network health, knowing the network issues can help you preempt some of the calls, and in other cases give a fast resolution and a fast workaround to users. Security. This is where the service desk and the security operations center sometimes meet in making sure that you understand that the early sensing of an increase in security incidents reported to the service desk needs, of course, a completely different attention outside of the service desk, but from the security organization. So what do you do in order to make sure that those processes integrate well and make sure that you give a quick first time resolution to the problem and then make sure that the root cause is solved. Mail, very much the same as end user software. Mobile devices. Mobile devices is an area where the standardization of the mobile device setup and the number of incidents are closely correlated. So every time you see a spike or just a slight increase in mobile device incidents in your service desk, the real question should be, no, I mean, first of all, could we do some self-service? Could we do some proactive reporting to the users? Please be aware of A, B, or C. Or could you actually go in and prevent that problem from happening in the future by changing the way the mobile devices are set up? Middleware, server, storage, the entire infrastructure. So you will have calls to the service desk that has to do with middleware, server, storage, the data center operational stuff. And there, of course, again, like with the end user devices, it's about knowing what goes on in the service in the server room, in the data center. Print, often a obvious area for self-service, and then this is an area where the link to on-site support is usually the most important, because either a printer works or it doesn't work, and if it doesn't work, you need someone out there to make it work. If it works but someone can't make it work, it might be a user error, and the first thing a user should do should be to go in on some kind of self-service portal and try to make it work before they call the service desk in the ideal and most efficient world. Yeah, admin tasks, which is typically the service desk also allows for you to order stuff and perform more admin tasks, and those are typically put in the service desk, because where else should you put it? Computer, briefcase, whatever you want to order. Make that as efficient as possible. Look into self-service options there as well. Okay, so that was a quick tour of the different segments in one way of segmenting the ITSM tickets. So just look at this as a suggestion. First start of how you could segment your incidents, your call center tickets, because this will allow you to perform different kind of analysis. Yeah, I think this is a good example. We had a service desk we looked at recently. They had 145,000 tickets a year, and we segmented them into requests and incidents. So request is someone asking on how to do something. And if we look at that, the interesting thing here is, of course, that out of the 145,000 tickets, you had 18,000 requests for password on how to reset the password.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's not very untypical. I mean,
this is quite common. It's more than 10% of the total volume that actually goes with something that is highly automatable.
And if you look at this on a timeline, this will often be in the beginning of August, or when people come, or just after New Year's Day. This is just a part of human nature. I mean, we tend to forget.
Yeah, and like I think most of you have reset your password for various online services quite frequently, buying stuff on the internet, and you are very used to actually having to reset your password yourself. I don't know if anyone's tried to actually have their password reset at Amazon, but I heard from someone trying to call the help desk at Amazon. That's not easy. It's a lot easier to do that online, and it should be the same in your service desk.
I guess they don't spend too much resources on their service desk.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure, but this is obviously so. There's a candidate right there. The next one is information request. 13,879. 97. and also user administration. These are simple level 1 requests. You should expect a huge proportion of those to be candidates for knowledge articles, self-service, FAQs, directed at the users. And also, if you do not have a good knowledge base, even internally in the service desk, there should be a potential for making it more efficient by having proper knowledge management here. Then Microsoft, these are standard on the PC configuration and Microsoft products. And then you have the non-standard requests, only 12,950 of those. So basically what we're looking at is a huge proportion of requests that are actually candidates for further automation and or knowledge management articles. Okay. Then let's move into the incidents. Well, a password reset can be a request or it can be an incident. It's a request if you ask how I reset my password. It's an incident if I ask you to reset my password. So in 3,000 cases, the service desk actually had to reset the password. Should be moved all to the left. And then we have some incidents here. Things doesn't work. Print here, 1,700 over the period. So that is, of course, those would be most probably a proportion of those you would then also find in the on-site, because some of them will be. No, sorry, they are in the left column. They were dispatched. So these were print issues actually handled in the service desk, as were the Microsoft stuff. Also, these are areas where knowledge articles could help the person solve the problem themselves. In this organization, Citrix is big and also a big problem, with almost with 9,300. And then you have some other incidents. The interesting thing here is, of course, that it's actually quite a small proportion that fits into the MISC category in this organization. This organization has a lot of very standardized issues that they handle.
Which is a good way to look at where should we focus our optimization and efficiency gains.
So the rhetoric question here is there a big opportunity to automate in this service desk? Yeah, we believe there is.
Yeah, and we could have called it the non-standard request and the MISC category from before another, because those are the special ones. Those should be treated as other and more time-consuming requests and incidents, and all the others could be somewhat automated or at least optimized in some way.
In this particular case, the service desk is a single point of contact for all users. It's a huge organization. So the service desk is the single point of contact, and a number of cases does not have anything to do with technology, but other kind of problems. So they are dispatched. But you're touching upon the exact right question here, because do I misuse my resources? Are they touched by humans? So does this mean that I call the service desk, I get a nice person in the phone, and saying, and I tell them I have a problem with something non-IT related, and they say, okay, I'll switch you over to the people handling, what do I know?
Smoke coming out of the printer.
Yeah, no, smoke coming out of the coffee machine.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So and you need the landlord services or whatever. Right?
But on-site tickets are part of the dispatch, right? So I mean that's
of course something you need to look into, and also whether you should have basically a robot in the first instance asking you, does your problem relate to coffee machines? Press 1. Does your problem relate to IT? Press 2, and so on. I mean, you probably could automate part of the dispatching function. In some organizations, the IT service desk, being the most mature of the service desk, are nominated to be the single point of contact for everything or a lot of things. Also the non-IT related things, so people have one number to call, and then it's dispatched from there. And that's a organizational decision whether you want to do that. If you want to do that, you need to streamline that to the degree, obviously, where you don't spend too much time on the dispatching itself. We are running a little out of time, and we have so many good examples, but I think this is a fairly good example on a pretty typical service desk where you break down, and obviously now you need to break it down one level more and look into what kind of PC problems do you have, what kind of Microsoft problem is it that you're facing, and so on. So this is basically the first level of analysis. Here we are looking at basically the baseline, looking at what is it that the baseline consists of, and this is going down to the very granular level and then going back up and saying, okay, so we actually had out of 61,000 tickets, we had 69,000 that were dispatch tickets. And as Anne is saying, are we spending our time right here? Is that something we should do at all? Should we have three numbers people could call, or
And the problem here is this was used by the vendor for per ticket price. So counting each ticket just as one ticket and one price. Dispatched doesn't take a lot of effort or could be automated fully. And of course you should, when you discuss the price of your tickets, you should discuss what kind of tickets is it really that we have, what kind of activity goes into resolving or just supporting us in this area.
Also here on the right, you see the incidents that are eligible for low-level automation, user access, password reset, information requests of different kinds. Again, you could say the low-hanging fruits identified, and go in and you can go in and find the initiatives that would help you basically solve them and automate them. And again, we are looking at here roughly 18,000 tickets that you might be able to that could go away with pretty simple low-level automation. And the dispatch tickets, those are candidates for either some kind of automation or even a completely different way of solving the way into the service desk. So, another good example from a ticket where you had a number of tickets, 241,000 tickets. And in this case, and the interesting thing here is, of course, every client is different. Every client has a different composition of these tickets, both a result of the different kind of system landscapes, but also as a result of the maturity of the service desk and how the service desk was created and what the focus was on hiring and educating people into the service desk. But this is facilitating or guidance on an access-related request. So this is about how do I get access to this system or that system.
User administration.
User administration. Huge point here. Obviously, an area that you should look into. Yeah. We won't go, I think this one we will skip, but it has to do with, we have 2 minutes. So this one has to do basically with the measurement of the individual efficiency of your service desk agents. That's obviously something you can begin looking at if you have a proper ITSM data. You can actually look into how many first and second line tickets do each agent solve over a period, and you will find that some of them are on the lower right part of what we call the efficiency frontier, while others are on the good side of that. This is a way also to really measure. The efficiency is really a proxy for the level of education you've spent on these people, on the culture, work ethics. It's a lot of things, but what you can do is you can invest in trying to move the people on the lower left side of the graph and moving them up and right.
And that's knowledge management again. If you want to lift these people up to being closer to the efficiency frontier, you need to educate them and in an efficient manner, so they can resolve higher complexities and more tickets just per hour.
Okay, so we are running out of time, and those of you who want to explore more about this, please contact us. We'll be happy to take you even further down into the details, but we'll leave you with some of the most important cost drivers if you're looking for outsourcing this. So what does drive the cost? Well, the amount of tickets, obviously. The more tickets, the more you'll have to pay. Basically, you're paying a price per ticket, and that price depends on what kind of distribution do you have, what is the scope of your service desk. As with all outsourcing agreements, terms and conditions like the commitment period, the penalties, and so on, will impact the price, as will, of course, the SLAs. Do you require a dedicated team? That's more expensive than if you're in a shared setup with the outsourcer. Do you have design authority? For example, do you want the outsourcer to use specific ITSM tools or other tooling? Do you have specific language requirements? Do you want the outsourcer to service you in English, Mandarin, Danish, and so on, or just in English? And how does the distribution of ticket looks like over the week and over the month?
Yeah, and when can you expect the service desk to be answering your call? Is it 24/7 or is it just weekdays?
Exactly. And then the scope of the services included, so the service requests included. So what are the kind of service requests? Obviously, also your requirements on knowledge management and other issues is interesting here. This is as far as we get today. Thank you very much. We are always open for questions over the mail, and happy to take meetings on this issue, especially on how to analyze your tickets and how to put some numbers on your current service desk operation, be it insourced or outsourced. So thank you for your attention, and looking forward to see you again on a webcast soon.